Hello, 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 everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome back. We're going to be starting chapter 7 in our book, Sacred Contracts, written by Carolyn Myss. So in this chapter, we're going to be learning about the archetype wheel, which according to the creator or the developer of the archetypes, Carl Jung, and I did look this up because I'm not as familiar with the archetype wheel. It says that it's a tool that helps explore and understand the 12 archetypes. So remember, even though I gave you like 80 of the 300 and something archetypes there are, the author shared many of the most common ones. Once you choose your 12, this wheel is supposed to help categorize the archetypes into different sections, each representing a broader theme or an area of focus. So that's what I got from that. And I do apologize. I have about 5 12-year-olds in my house right now playing, and they are being somewhat quiet right now. So I'm hoping it kind of stays that way. They're waiting to eat. So 5 12-year-old boys. All right. So chapter 7, Reinventing the Wheel. According to legend, Egil Skallagrimsson, one of Iceland's early settlers, was well versed in the art of writing and interpreting runes, the magical ancient word symbols common to Germanic and Scandinavian legend, or Germanic. It's Germanic, not sure which, that can calm the sea, extinguish flames, and blunt the edge of an enemy's sword. The 800-year-old Egil's saga describes events that happened some 250 years earlier. In one episode, Egil, it's E-G-I-L, visits a farm where he finds that the farmer's daughter is sick and has been wasting away for quite some time. Egil asks whether anyone has tried to heal the young woman, and he is told that the farmer's son has carved some runes. But ever since it has been far worse for her than before. Egil finds those runes on a piece of whalebone in the woman's bed. He scrapes the bone clean and burns both it and the shavings. Then he carves new runes, laying them under her pillow. She quickly becomes well. Egil then pronounces the moral of the story in poetic language. No leech should unleash runes, save rightly he can read them. Runes, casting lots, divination, the I Ching, tarot cards, numerology, the Enneagram, and the different astrology traditions of Western, Vedic, Tibetan, and Chinese cultures are among the many practices that people have long used to gain access to the unconscious mind and harness the valuable intuition locked within. Working with your archetypes and chakras is also a way of consciously channeling divine energy and your own intuition. Yet skill, knowledge, and the willingness to become a clear vessel of transmission are essential elements in gaining that access. The quality of the guidance that you receive from any of these methods also depends on the intention and attitude with which you approach the tool. People seek guidance from intuitive methods for reasons ranging from curiosity and entertainment to desperation and the yearning for divine connection. Most people seek guidance to try to gain or maintain control over their personal life, loved ones, health, and property. They want direction and instructions to act on, and they usually hope to be told the safest path to follow. They want guidance that gives them material security more than they want spiritual guidance. No matter what their motivation, however, few individuals can open themselves unconditionally to such direction. Our expectations about what we will hear or what we want to hear limits our openness to insight. For instance, say you are divinely intended to move on from your current occupation, but in asking for guidance, you really are seeking to hear only ways to remain where you are. So any information that you do receive, you will interpret from a biased perspective. When you interpret intuitive information, whether it be images and gut feelings or messages from your archetypes, it's important that you cultivate a detached or symbolic point of view. That means, as we have seen, that you need to look at the events and relationships of your life throughout the third archetypal column rather than the first, which is the physical column. In other words, you want to see the events as part of your contract, which you agreed to enter into, rather than as arbitrary limitations or purposeless encounters. You want to look at your archetypes with this same symbolic sight. Many people interact with their archetypes to try to find out why others hurt them, when they should be looking to see how their archetypes have given hurt to others. I want you to do this though. How have your shadow archetypes played out in your relationships? Who from your present or past is in therapy getting over you, just as you've been getting over someone else? For guidance to help you, you have to look at yourself as honestly as possible. That is what personal growth is all about. Honesty about yourself and others, about your path, about your strengths and weaknesses. Working with guidance is not just a method of peering into the psyches of the people in your life to get a fix on them. That would be spiritual voyeurism. Rather, it is a method of learning about yourself and your relationships in this lifetime. All tools and methods of guidance are essentially the same. They're like radio receivers, and you are the receiver and the operator of the radio. Still, you need to know how to prepare yourself as the receiver so that the signals can come through clearly. For example, any radio needs an adequate source of electricity, a battery or a plug, and it must be tuned and adjusted. Because you are the source of the energy on which your intuitive radio relies for activation, your attitude is the key to clarity and quality of the guidance you receive. When people throw the I Ching as a game, for example, the answers that it provides tend to be limited in meaning, largely because the user's lightness of attitude limits their perception. Superstition also blocks clear reception, because whether you realize it or not, your underlying fear influences the way you interpret the information. When you approach intuitive methods with respect, you become open to hearing from your interior channels. The accuracy of the guidance you receive will be in direct proportion to the sincerity of your attitude. Before you begin to work with your archetypes, take some deep breaths to clear your mind of any expectations. If you're trying to influence the guidance, you will not get honest feedback. If anyone helping you read yourself wants to influence you or has an expectation of what you want to hear, you will not get honest feedback. You should have no attachment to the guidance you're seeking, either for yourself or someone else. Most people initially search for guidance about their physical lives, about their careers, love lives, or investments that they can use immediately. But the more valuable form of guidance is symbolic or archetypal, although it may take you longer to interpret. Just as dreams have many layers of meaning, so often does intuitive information. Guidance taken at the literal level will enhance your life only minimally. For example, the airplane dreams that I shared with you at the beginning of this book, which hold much less significance for me had I interpreted them only in terms of how I applied them to my physical life. I could have interpreted them as reflecting my everyday issues and worries about traveling. But when I saw the airplane as a symbol, their true significance, their helpfulness, consolation, and inspiration was revealed. Now we're going to read a section titled The 12. And then we're going to stop right there, because after that, we're going to go over each house, there's 12 of them. They call each section a house. We're going to go over those separately. I'm going to try to do about 3 to 4 each video so that there's not too many of them, but there's also not too many squished into one video. The 12. After I surrendered to the way the archetypes rearranged my way of conducting intuitive readings, I began to perceive many more of them. In addition to the 4 survival patterns, among the most frequent ones that presented themselves to me were the rescuer, servant, princess, knight, king, queen, wounded healer, mystic, and shapeshifter. As I tried to organize what their energy signified for my students and for others, I remembered an exercise that my dearest college professor and mentor had taught. To convey to a class on spirituality the greater power of detachment in perceiving reality, she had us imagine that we were sitting in the center of a clock. Each of the 12 hours of the clock represented a totally different reality. 1 hour represented the spiritual teachings of Buddhism, another the principles of the Hindu traditions, the others Judaism, Christianity, Islam, Taoism, Confucianism, Shinto, Wicca, Zoroastrianism, shamanism, and atheism. This image shows that there's no such thing as one reality. That truth presents itself in many forms. Detachment from preconceptions or sitting in the center, she was saying, is the only way to begin to perceive life clearly. The clock also represents a complete cycle of life. Day and night both have 12 hours, and 12 months complete a year, although we know now that the original Mayan calendar had 13. So put that in your pipe and smoke it, because that's actually the original calendar was 13 months, which makes sense when you add up the days. Anyways, okay. Now I lost my place because I had to go on that little tangent. I was way up here. Okay. 12 signs of the zodiac surrounded our planet. 12 apostles were sent out by Jesus on their missions, and 12 tribes of Israel made up the biblical Jewish nation, arguably the foundation of the entire Western spiritual tradition. The mystical implications of this number 12 suggest that it too is an archetypal pattern. The clock, when divided into 12 sections, also resembles a wheel, one of the most ancient representations of spirit, fate, fortune, and the cycles of life. I decided to use this wheel as a pattern and filled in each of the hours, which I renamed houses with archetypes. I listed one archetype within each section and imagined that I was once again standing in the middle of a circle, this time surrounded by my archetypal family. The strong visual image that I got was of a united cosmic support system. As I looked at my drawing, I also realized that I had also unconsciously duplicated the ancient design of the astrological wheel, and had even numbered the 12 houses of the signs of the zodiac. It immediately struck me that this cosmic template was the perfect form for making the archetype more manageable or tangible. And I'll show this to you. It might be kind of hard to see, but basically each of the astrological signs is in the box, and then we have them numbered at the top, and it's broken up into 12. Can't see if you can see it, but just like that. Okay. Carl Jung believed that our ancestors projected archetypal patterns into myths and folklore in the same way that they shaped arrangements of stars into human and animal figures and gave them names and personalities. We can see this most clearly if we look at the heavenly constellations, in which original chaotic forms were organized through the projection of images. This explains the influence of the stars as asserted by astrologers. These influences are nothing but unconscious, introspective perceptions of the activity of the collective unconscious. Just as the constellations were projected into the heavens, similar figures were projected into legends and fairy tales, or upon historical persons. This explained the link I had intuitively felt between archetypes and the zodiac. Perhaps I was catching a glimpse of the collective unconscious as I saw the 12 houses of the zodiac overlaid on my archetypal wheel. The overlapping design of these wheels might have been just a nice coincidence, but the more I worked with the confluence between the 12 archetypes and the 12 houses of the zodiac, the more firmly I became convinced that they could shed light on our contracts and get us to see ourselves in new ways. The archetypal wheel is an intuitive method that makes symbolic information accessible to you. Your archetypes become even more significant when you see them at work in the houses that signify 12 different aspects of your life. And you could probably go on and actually download a PDF online for the archetype wheel, just an empty one, and then fill it in yourself. The wheel helps you decode the behind-the-scenes patterns of your life. It shows you your experiences and relationships as spiritual dramas, filled with opportunities for personal transformation. Your moods and emotions influence how your archetypal patterns arrange themselves in your wheel. The manner in which the runes or bones fall in a reading, for example, reflects your energy, emotional state, as well as the energy atmosphere at that moment. Full moons and other phases, for instance, are well known to affect emotions, as do planetary aspects, sunspots, or the influence of electrical storms. Methods of intuitive guidance are particularly in tune with cosmic energies because all energies are interconnected. Like an astrological chart, the purpose of the archetypal wheel is to expand your understanding of yourself. Specifically, the wheel is a medium through which your archetypal patterns can best communicate their role in unfolding your sacred contract. Your archetypes are like magnets, drawing together the essential elements required for an experience to manifest, including the people with whom you have contracts and the points at which you are to make important choices. Each of the houses is also aligned with the energies of one or more chakras, where the areas of influence overlap. This confluence of energies should help you get a deeper picture of the nature of your archetypal houses. Okay. The first house of the astrological chart, for example, represents the ego and personality. The archetype that falls into that house represents the dominant unconscious pattern of influence of your ego and personality. Because it is the house that grounds you in the world and rules your sense of who you are, it is aligned with the energies of both the first and third chakras. When I am teaching the wheel in a workshop, I ask people to intuit which archetype a particular member of the group has on his or her house of ego. Sorry, that was a loaded sentence. Many are able to identify the exact archetypes, while others will usually describe characteristics that are associated with that archetype. Men who have the archetype of the knight on their first house, for instance, frequently project an aura glittering with chivalry, romance, and charm. They may also seem protective of others, especially women, and courtly or even formal in their manner of dress or speech. Sometimes this archetype is obvious and sometimes it's subtle. One time I gave a workshop in my hometown, Chicago, that was being taped by a network television crew as part of a feature on my work. As I was speaking about the knight archetype, I commented that a knight would be more inclined to send his maiden a red rose than lilies or tulips. I then turned to a young man seated in the front row and I said, "Now take this man. He strongly projects the knight archetype to me. He is obviously romantic in nature." As soon as I finished that sentence, he pulled a red rose out from behind his back and handed it to me as a gift. It shocked even me, not to mention the TV crew. The interviewer turned to his cameraman and said, You did get that on tape, didn't you?" The archetype that rules our first house projects the initial impression people have on meeting us. And believe me when I tell you that knowing what your archetypal mask is can be a great social advantage. That makes a lot of sense. According to astrological teachings, each of the 12 houses in a natal chart, which is a chart showing the precise position of the planets at the moment of your birth, represents a different focus of your life. The 12 houses of the wheel provide a format through which you can evaluate how your archetypes operate in your daily life, both literally and symbolically. The eighth house, for instance, labeled Other People's Resources in Figure 5, relates to other people's money and how you use it. Figure 5. Is this Figure 5? Nope, that's Figure 4. We haven't gotten to Figure 5 yet. That's actually going to be in the next video, so yeah. Okay. Your inheritance can refer not only to your financial legacy, but also to your DNA and ancestral biological memory, as well as to your inherited tribal attitudes and beliefs going back a generation or a millennium. I think I skipped Other People's Resources relates to other people's money and how you use it, and to inheritances and legal matters. Sorry, I missed that part. Even though you can interpret your archetypes and their houses literally, you want to stretch their meaning into the symbolic. If you stop at the literal meaning of a word, you may get frustrated because you cannot always literally see a connection between an archetypal pattern and the meaning of the house into which it falls. You want to see the literal meaning of what is taking place in front of your eyes. For instance, emotional, psychological, and genetic inheritances are just as real, if not more so, than money and property. So when considering your inheritances, please consider physical, attitudinal, and emotional characteristics you share with your family as well. When you are trying to interpret the meaning of any archetypal pattern within its house, consider all sides of the image and the information it holds. By doing so, you will create a fuller portrait of all the patterns and purpose of your life. Remember, your archetype are your guides to discerning your contracts and achieving your divine potential. All of your archetypal patterns are certainly present in the concerns of each of the 12 houses, for they interact as one hologram-like system within the psyche. Nonetheless, one pattern takes the lead regarding the theme of each house. In Chapter 8, I will show you how to locate your 12 archetypes into their appropriate houses and create your own personal wheel. But first, let's go through the meanings of the houses themselves, and that's when we'll look at Figure 5. Okay, so we're going to stop right there, and we'll start on the actual meaning of each house in the next video. And I'll also show you the figure of the wheel filled in a little bit more than the previous one. And of course, we're going to start with the first house in the next video, and we'll work our way down to number 12. All right, so we'll stop right there. Moving right along, we have 11 chapters in this book. It's not as thick as it looks because much of it is the appendix, which I read to you. So yeah, it's not as bad as it looks as far as what we have left. So thank you all very much for joining me. I love you all very much. I appreciate anyone who joins me for this and who wants to learn more. And until I see you again, take care of yourself, take care of those around you. Bye-bye.